George Washington was chosen as Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. military, or as back then, I guess, the colonial military or whatever you want to call it, because of his experience and his reputation. He was a well-known military officer because of his years in service. George Washington did not receive pay for his position because he thought his money would better be served in the military. And he also was a very rich man, and he did not need the money. He also submitted fees of $100,000 of war debts because of the money they spent on the war. The goal and the purpose of the Declaration of Independence was for the U.S. to have, or not the U.S., the colonies to have separation from Great Britain and to be separated because they don't want to have to follow the king's rule anymore and have to pay all the taxes and have to follow all his rules. They want to become an independent, I guess, sovereignty, if you can put it that way. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were the people who helped draft the original Declaration of Independence. And some people ask, how did the Declaration help other countries? Well, it led them to break away from their ways and their kings and to have more of a divided and equal government. The Articles of Confederation were written on November 14th, 1777, but were ratified, which means like confirmed and signed, or not really signed, but confirmed and put into paper and put out for people to actually follow, and the laws being enforced in 1781. The original purpose of the Articles of Confederation were to loosen the Confederation on the sovereign states and not make them allow them have more power and have their own currency. Why did the French form an alliance with the Americans? One may ask. They formed an alliance with the Americans because they needed the support to. They needed the military support to maybe defend themselves from Great Britain, or maybe attack Great Britain if ever needed. The Congress sent Benjamin Franklin, Silas Deane, and Arthur Reed to France to negotiate the Treaty of Alliance with France. They signed the Treaty of Alliance with France whatever you want to say, February 6, 1778 in France. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3rd, 1783, and was negotiated and signed in the city that the treaty was named after, the great city and known worldwide as Paris, France. And also the three Americans that were involved in the signing and were sent over to Paris to negotiate and I guess sign this treaty were John Jay, an American, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin. And Benjamin Franklin was also another guy who also went over to France to negotiate the Treaty of Alliance. And now they're making another treaty, the Treaty of Paris, which is also in France. The articles that were most important to the Americans in the Treaty of Paris were the Preliminary Articles, which indeed allowed them to expand to the west and gain more land for their soon-to-be, quote-unquote, country. I guess what you want to see in the near future is, I guess, what Benjamin Franklin was looking forward to, I guess. And the primary goal of the treaty was actually kind of to have the Americans have their independence and able to expand, and also I guess a little bit to make peace, because I think the Americans were kind of done with the fighting and they just wanted to settle down. And also David Martley signed for Great Britain in the treaty. And a fun fact is that all of the people who signed in the treaty all signed in ABC order. So there you go. James Madison, John Alexander Hamilton were the only ones who wrote the Federalist Papers. You might think there's a lot of them, so they might have more authors, but that's only 3. There were 85 Federalist Papers written, and they did not really know who the true author was, but they kind of inferred Thomas Jefferson. And also, what does the name Federalist mean? It means that they were kind of for a central government, in that they didn't really want to have states to have a lot of power. They kind of wanted there to be a central government, and everyone follow the rules of that central government. And in the name came from a New York City packet. That's where the Federalist Papers came from. I want to explain the importance of Article number 84. It said that the Bill of Rights was not a necessary component of the U.S. Constitution. That's what it states. And Federalist means that like a person who supports the Constitution and is very strong for a central government. And an anti-federalist is like someone who wants the states to kind of have their own power, and the Congress and the central government not to enforce, I guess, taxes. The Constitution of the United States. To ratify means to make a treaty or a document, I guess, official by signing it or voting it into Congress, or not necessarily Congress, but voting it into, I guess, to being enforced, so that the law is now being enforced and is now an actual law. And when was the Constitution of the United States ratified? It was ratified on May 29th, 1790. With who had more power, it was actually, as a matter of fact, it was actually equal. The states and the U.S. central government actually had the same amount of power, which is actually the biggest problem that could actually happen here, because ultimately it kind of creates a gridlock where neither the states or the U.S. government could come to agreement. So say like a state wants to pass a law on something that they do not believe in, but they want every state to follow that law. Well, they don't have enough power to overrule all the states, and the U.S. government doesn't have enough power to overrule all the states. So they kind of come to a gridlock in this position. So now, also the U.S. government wants more taxes to be able to do more stuff and gain more power, but they don't have enough power over the states to get enough money, or to get enough, get enough structure to, get the money and to create new laws and do what they want. So it kind of creates gridlock, and that was the big major problem. And what was the deal with the, who had more power deal?